So we're going to talk about carbon dioxide briefly. Carbon dioxide comes from, it's a natural and a human caused air pollutant. And its natural sources is combustion, so burning, like natural forest fires. Not all forest fires are human caused. Natural forest fires, natural burning is a natural source of carbon dioxide. Complete combustion releases carbon dioxide. Respiration, so photosynthesis, and the opposite of that is respiration, cellular respiration. Decomposition, whether it's aerobic decomposition, it's again going to just be like cellular respiration releasing CO2. Even fermentation will release, or anaerobic respiration will release some CO2. Volcanic eruptions definitely release large amounts of CO2. So there are plenty of natural sources of CO2. The anthropogenic, the human caused source of CO2 is also combustion. Okay. But in typically what we're focusing on more than is its combustion of fossil fuels that, again, that carbon has not been part of the atmosphere for a long time. So that carbon has been part of, was buried in fossil fuels deep in the ground for a really long time. And that's part of why we're more concerned in terms of climate change. But there are natural sources of CO2, and there are anthropogenic and more human caused sources of CO2. Environmentally, there's really not a lot of issues in terms of air pollutants, such as like respiratory distress in cities or acid rain or things like that. The big environmental impact, which is what we will really cover in Unit 9, is this idea of global warming or global climate change. That is a big environmental impact. So global warming or global climate change, but we haven't regulated CO2 as much or really much at all in the United States before, because it wasn't like, again, it was causing smog in cities that people were seeing as an issue. So there are huge environmental impacts, but that's a whole other issue that we'll spend more time on. Human health impacts, there's none directly. So if I breathe in CO2, in fact, I breathe in CO2, it's in the air. When I exhale, there is CO2 in my breath from respiration. So there's no human health impacts directly to me from CO2. So to go back and kind of summarize, there are natural and there are human caused sources of CO2. Combustion is this big one we go to, but is also respiration, decomposition, volcanic eruptions, etc. Hope that was helpful.